What if events went differently in Avengers 2012? What if Loki took full control over the Hulk's mind in Avengers 2012? Imagine when Loki and Hulk confront each other in Stark Tower. Events had unfolded slightly differently, changing the outcome of the film. Welcome back, my fellow watchers of the multiverse, to yet another Marvel's What If episode. And today I'm super excited to dive into this insane alternate timeline, having the Hulk turn on the Avengers and being controlled by Loki would not only change everything, but the Battle of New York could be won by Loki. Well, I do want to say make sure to check out the latest videos on the channel and make sure to request what you would like to see in the comments down below. But that being said, watchers, grab some popcorn and let's get right into this. Location: Stark Tower. Now in this timeline, the reason Loki's scepter was lost was because of the battle with Thor on top of the Stark Tower. The scepter was then found by Black Widow after confronting Dr. Selvig to find a way to shut down the Tesseract that would eventually end the Chitauri army from coming down to Earth. But in this timeline, some of the events unfold differently. Loki had confronted Thor. Thor asked his brother to come back to the light and face up for what he had done. Loki smiled as he yelled at Thor that he would rule this world, and that he was already too late even if he wanted to end this fight. He couldn't. There is no way to end this. There is only the war, Loki stated, as he charged towards Thor. The two of them began hand-to-hand combat, with Loki wielding the scepter and Thor dodging his attacks with Mjolnir. Loki and Thor were held in a lock, with both of them staggering. "You think this will end your rule," Thor said. "It's too late," Loki replied. "No, we can end this together," Thor said back. Thor extending out his hand towards Loki. Loki looked around and he knew that although he was beaten by Thor, he could play the long game, and he thought of a sick plan. He smiled as he took Thor's hand, and in this timeline it changes everything. Thor grabbed the scepter and asked Loki, "How do we turn this off?" "I don't know," Loki said. Thor took Loki by the hand as he flew towards the machine that was powering up the Tesseract. The heroes down below continued to fight like the original timeline, trying to formulate a plan. Captain America knew that Thor had confronted Loki and sensed that something might not be right. "He should be here by now," Cap said as Hulk and Black Widow had a small look of concern. "We need to get back to Stark Tower and stop him. If we can shut that portal down, we can stop the army from coming in," he said. As Hulk smiled, "I'll go," he said, as Hulk jumped towards Stark Tower. As the heroes continued to fight on the ground, most of the Chitauri army were flying around past Loki, who was with Thor and Selvig, some of them looking to get more orders from Loki. They were confused at the turn of events, and as they flew past Loki and Thor, they saw that Thor had the scepter in his hands. Loki looked confused as they continued to fly away. A group of Chitauri flew back into the portal in space and touched down into the ship. They bowed as a large mad titan who was sitting up on his throne sat up. "What is of this matter?" the other asked. "We have been betrayed," the soldier replied, as he showed footage of Loki and Thor trying to shut the portal down. The other then turned towards Thanos, who was angry at the turn of events. "What is our next move?" he asked. As the Mad Titan got up from his throne, back on Earth, the Hulk jumped from building to building, defeating more of the Chitauri army below, but he finally made his way back to Stark Tower. Loki smiled with a grin, as Thor thanked the big guy for looking out for him. The two of them then turned at Loki, as Loki told Thor to give him the scepter. He would use it to shut the portal and stop the invasion. Thor looked at Hulk, and then back at Loki. He trusted that his brother wouldn't do anything stupid, because Hulk was here and Hulk could easily kill him. Loki then looked towards Selvig, who was still on the ground and being controlled by Loki. He laughed and told them that he would be the one to do it, as Thor gave him the scepter. As he was about to shut the portal down, Loki smiled and took Selvig by the neck and snapped it, throwing him off of Stark Tower. Thor screamed, but he was stabbed in the gut by Loki, as Loki had shapeshifted and used the fake Selvig as a diversion. The plan had worked. Loki pointed the staff towards the chest of Hulk. As his eyes started fully going black, the Hulk screamed in pain, and Thor, who fell on his two knees, was kicked to the ground by Loki. Loki used it on him too. Thor's eyes were engulfed with black, as they stood still like mindless zombies, willing to do Loki's bidding. Loki, now with the scepter in his hand, laughed as he sent Thor and Hulk to kill the Avengers. The two of them jumped off of the tower as Loki continued to laugh. While at the other side of New York, the rest of the Avengers were starting to feel the effects of not having Hulk and Thor aid them in the fight. As Captain America and Iron Man fought with Hawkeye and Black Widow back to back, the four of them continued on their assault, but they were being closed in and fast. Iron Man used his repulsors on Cap's shield, creating a massive beam that cut through the soldiers. They both turned to see that Hawkeye was shot in the leg, and Widow screamed, trying to use everything that she could to save him, but he was shot again and wounded pretty bad. The shot blew off his leg. Tony flew towards some of the Jatari, but he was also shot in the chest, making him fall back. Captain America just looked on as he used his shield to kill some of the soldiers. Both Tony and Cap moved Clint out of the way. They called for Fury and told him that they had a man down. Fury told Tony to hold on as he tried to reach both Thor and the Hulk, but they couldn't wait as more soldiers came in and continued to shoot at the team. Captain America used his shield to dodge the attacks. He screamed to Tony to see if he might be able to track them down. Tony shook his head and said that he couldn't, and just out of nowhere, the ground began to shake as lightning came down but struck Captain America, Iron Man, Black Widow, and Hawkeye, all seamlessly at the same time. They screamed with intense pain. Iron Man slowly opened his eyes. Everything was blurry, but he could hear the screams of Steve Rogers. "Banner, no," he said, as Tony saw a large silhouette from the fire of a car, and it was a large Hulk, who stomped his foot onto Black Widow, almost killing her. Then he grabbed Captain America and proceeded to strangle him, but Tony threw himself towards Hulk, while Thor launched his hammer at Tony. "They have been corrupted by Loki," Cap said, as he continued to cough up blood. Hulk smiled and punched Steve in the face, knocking him a few feet away into a car. The car door had stabbed his shoulder, and he was impaled, pinned there. He tried to move, but he couldn't. Hawkeye began crawling away with only one leg, and he managed to hide by a nearby car. Loki looked up from the portal as he began seeing a large ship slowly coming through the portal, and he knew this wasn't good. He even considered shutting it down, but it was already too late. Back where the Avengers were at Ground Zero, Hulk and Thor looked up as they saw a large ship slowly looming above them. Tony Stark slowly got up and flew towards Cap, who was bleeding out. He used his armor to cut a part of the car door that was stabbed into him. They both looked up, seeing the ship just staying still, as a large beam shot down at them, and a figure came out. He was standing tall with a dual-wield sword. "So this is what Earth looks like," he said, as he looked around to see Thor and Hulk, who were standing in the middle, and he looked to his left to see Iron Man and Captain America wounded. Loki took his scepter and rushed to ground zero. Although Loki hated his brother Thor, he knew that if the Mad Titan had arrived on Earth, that he wouldn't spare anyone. So Loki left as soon as the ship touched down. Hulk charged towards Thanos, and the two started getting into a fight, while Thor also helped Hulk. The two of them began punching the Mad Titan with so much force that the Mad Titan drew blood. And without any of the stones, it was raw power. He charged in and tried to stab Hulk in the chest, but Thor, using his hammer, knocked Thanos in the face with it. Loki came down and told them to stop, as Hulk and Thor stood still. "This is some type of misunderstanding," Loki said. Thanos, slowly getting himself back up, looked at Loki. He told him that he was a traitor. Loki smiled and said, "So be it," and ordered Hulk and Thor to kill Thanos. The Mad Titan tried to gain the upper hand, but he lost his balance as Hulk punched him in the knee, and Thor used his hammer so hard that it cracked the skull of the Mad Titan. Loki was watching the fight unfold, and he was punched in the face by Black Widow, who was covered in blood. Hawkeye, at the same time, threw his arrows at Widow, who launched it into him. Cap and Tony looked at each other as Captain America threw his shield towards Loki, while Iron Man blasted him. Loki was sent flying into a building. While the connection between Hulk and Thor was destroyed, they both fell to the ground. Fury told Tony that they were nuking New York City because of the ship, and the invasion was becoming too much for them. He asked if he could grab it, but Tony's armor was destroyed. Fury took out his pager, knowing that he couldn't count on anyone, and within moments the nuke started flying towards Thanos' ship. As the nuke started coming in, a beam of energy intercepted the bomb and flew it into the portal. Everyone realizing what was about to happen, Cap grabbed the staff and told Fury that he had it with him, and that they could use the scepter to shut it down. But he was already too far, and within each passing moment, Captain Marvel touched down, smiling at the heroes. But she took the scepter and pushed it through the machine, and destroyed it. Some of the impact, though, did come through Earth, shaking some of the buildings, as the heroes tried to take cover from the nuke that went off in space. Everyone was shocked to see the unfolding events, as Loki was arrested for his crimes. But Thanos, the wild card from all of this, was now killed, and this left Ronan the Accuser and the other to grab power together, while at the same time Hawkeye lost his leg. But Thor and Hulk, they took the longest time to recover, as the connection between Loki really hurt them. Thor decided that Hulk was not safe on Earth, and that he would take Banner to Asgard, so that he could recover there as well. They took Loki's scepter and the Tesseract to Asgard too. The Avengers then brought Captain Marvel onto the team, as she would take up those slots that Widow and Hawkeye once had. The world was saved, but with many costs. Gamora and Nebula both smiled as they found Earth, and they would soon invade it with Ronan. And that is going to be, what if Loki controlled the mind of Hulk? What if Loki took control of the Hulk in Avengers 2012? Now, what did you think of this insane Marvel's What If episode? Were you expecting all of these events to actually happen? Because when I was writing this, I was like, we gotta make this very interesting. And the only way that Loki would have been able to control the Hulk is if somehow the Hulk were to have come back, but Loki would have had to have won the battle between Thor, or essentially joining him and tricking Thor. So I think it would have been really interesting to see Loki take full control of the Hulk's mind, because then you start seeing things go absolutely berserk. And having Thor as a wild card, and actually Thor and Hulk teaming up to kill Thanos, like that was another thing I wanted to do. I was like, let's have the Jatari think that Loki's gonna betray them, so they inform Thanos, and Thanos comes down, but he doesn't have the Power Stone, he doesn't have any stones, and so he gets completely annihilated by Hulk and Thor easily. So now the power vacuum is like, oh, we have Ronan and we have the other who are both still alive and well. And we also have Nebula and Gamora, who would eventually join Ronan, and probably, you know, what would they do? Like, it's very interesting to see now what happens. Would you like to see a part 2? I mean, I don't know what we would call this now. We could somehow have Hulk in probably Thor 2, and I think that would be really interesting to see Hulk and Thor in Thor the Dark World. Like, that would be really interesting. But again, thank you so much for tuning in. Do make sure to subscribe, like, share, and turn those notifications on so you and your friends are all up to date with the latest content. But thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the brand new video. Take care and have a fantastic day. Peace out.